Good morning, everyone. How are you? Wonderful. I just got here from Philadelphia, so I'm super excited to be back in Texas. I grew up in Houston, but I am happy to be here in Austin, so this is really exciting. This is my first time in South by Southwest, so I'm really excited to talk today about turning credibility into currency and how you can maximize trust as a way to maintain longevity in podcasting and beyond. So some brief things about myself. My name is Ernest Owens. I'm an award-winning journalist. I'm the CEO of Ernest Media Empire LLC. My background is in journalism, but I started a podcast called Earnestly Speaking, which is based on my name, Ernest, but put together with an L-Y in the way of earnestly. So no A, just ERNESTLY speaking. And I started that podcast during the pandemic as a response to a lot of the bad red pill incel podcasts that I was seeing floating around. I didn't see too many podcasts that reflected voices that looked like mine, that came from communities like I came from, and had a millennial Black queer perspective on social issues, politics, and pop culture. So I created my podcast as a response to a lot of the dirtbag things that I was seeing and hearing on podcasts. So I started this podcast in early 2020, like early 2020 during the pandemic, and my first episode launched right before January 6, 2021. And I've not stopped doing that show ever since. Over 250 episodes later, my show continues to do its thing, free for subscribers, covering all topics for a variety of time. How did I do this and maintain a listenership that has kept me motivated? Before I came here this morning, I was recording half of my podcast so they can launch every Monday at 10 a.m. The reason why I do it is several things that I advise people with podcasts. If you're interested in consistency, if you're interested in trying to build an audience and grow, I have 4 major tips. The first one is know what you know. What does that mean, knowing what you know? And how do you build credibility on that? For starters, you don't have to be a journalist to have credibility. Anyone who is seeking truth, speaking truth to power, understands the importance of credibility. Most people who follow podcasts are looking for a person who has expertise. And how do you do that is by knowing what you know well, knowing exactly what you love. So if you're a dentist and you're really interested in oral hygiene, if you're a political expert that's worked on campaigns, seek the things that you feel the most comfortable talking about above everything else. The second thing is know what you don't know. One of the biggest things I've had over the years is that there have been my followers who will want me to talk on a topic that I didn't necessarily feel comfortable about. Now, I love my listeners. I really do. But I'm also very important not to step into territories that is not my wheelhouse. I'm really interested in covering local politics in Philadelphia. But sometimes people will say, well, hey, this issue is going on in Chicago. What do you think about that? I'm like, well, I might have read a couple of articles, but I try to stay in my own lane in that regard. So things that I don't know about, like sports, I don't touch. Now, I do live in Philadelphia, and we do have the Eagles. And I won't say go Birds because I know where I'm at. But again, know what you know and know what you don't know. I know nothing about certain teams in other states that might have a rivalry with the Eagles, but I choose my battles. My third point that I want to bring up. So know what you know what you don't know, pick a lane. It's very important. Picking a lane is crucial. A lot of people say, I want to do everything. And I always grew up being told, you can do everything you want to do, but not exactly at the same time. So when you pick a lane, figure out what territory do you want to put your podcast in. Do you want it to be arts and entertainment? Do you want to be politics? Do you want to be science? Do you want it to be a hosting type of show or a solo show? My show is solo. I really do not feel comfortable chasing people all around. Sometimes I will do a bonus special edition episode where I might have a special guest, but it's a special occasion. So know what your lane is off the jump. Don't jump around too much because if you're trying to keep an audience, that credibility is based in consistency. And then lastly, you hear people often say, pick a lane and stay in it. Well, I tell people, pick a lane and slay in it. So, what does that mean, slay in it? Basically, once you know what you're interested in, once you have your knowledge, once you have your facts, once you have your context, what's really important now is to really take yourself seriously. Too often, people are afraid to launch podcasts because they're afraid of numbers and metrics. But the real important thing is building an audience before you launch the podcast. I was a journalist for many years before I decided to do podcasting. When it was something that everyone and their mother was doing right before the pandemic, I kind of said, I'm not too sure. People said, oh, well, everyone's doing it. And I always tell people I'm a trendsetter, or I'm someone, if I do jump on a trend, I establish my own lane. So when everyone was doing podcasts around me, I was kind of a late bloomer, but not really. Because once I decided to do the show, I was confident in it. And that's how I was able to slay in it. So my show started at the beginning of 2021, right before January 6th. My show was on politics, so clearly I had a lot to talk about. But what was so important about that moment is that before I started my podcast, I had 100 people that was committed to subscribing to the show before it launched. I had plans to have a launch party. I had ideas for my topics for at least the first month to get settled. But I made it a point to already build the credibility and build the audience before I started it. I didn't just wake up one day and say, I want to do a podcast, because I know how hard that would be to, look at your metrics. I do Buzzsprout to look at the downloads and feel discouraged. So do some of that legwork before you start, and then let word of mouth and build on it. Take your podcast seriously before you expect anyone to take it seriously. For me, I was independent. I did it by myself. I produce it by myself. I record on Logic Pro, and then I download and upload to Buzzsprout. And now my show charts in the top 200 of Apple Podcasts in the news and podcast section. All independent. I don't charge people. I don't do any of that because I really want people to get this information. And so I tell people, whatever podcast you're trying to start and do the homework up front. You don't necessarily have to join 1,000 different companies and organizations. Take it slow and build. I think in my third year, that was when I began to join the Podcast Academy. That's when I was able to join the Black Podcast Awards, and I began to build a network. But take the time to explore what you like, because once you tell people about your show, they don't want to hear you tell them it's not ready to go or you're still trying to figure it out. Take that time to explore it. This is your work. Take it seriously. And so I took time to brainstorm my topic, really understand what I cared about, and then launched it. So in closing, I really want to emphasize the importance that credibility is currency. And what I mean by that is that so often people think that the successful podcasts that exist and last have to have celebrities, have to have stunts, have to have all that. That's what will get you in the room, but it won't keep you in the room. What I tell people is that for me, I don't charge for my podcast, but the currency that I have with my listeners on a weekly basis is rooted in that credibility. People will keep coming back and listening if they believe in you, if they trust you, if they believe you have something to say that matters. And so I will tell everyone that whether you have a big brand behind you, a publicist, an agency, or any of those things, the best podcasts that I listen to and I subscribe to are the ones that keep me engaged. The people that, like I said before, know what they know what they don't know, stay in their lane, and pick a lane, and then they slay in it. And I encourage you all to do the same. Thank you so much.